The massive Zephyrian command ship Eternal Dominance cut through space like a blade through silk. Its crystalline hull gleamed under distant starlight as Admiral Kexathera studied the holographic display before her. The blue-green world spinning slowly in the projection looked promising. Water, oxygen, the right temperature range. Perfect for another easy conquest. "Analysis complete, Admiral," reported her tactical officer, his 4 arms dancing over control surfaces. "The third planet shows signs of primitive civilization. Radio emissions, basic satellites, chemical propulsion. They haven't even achieved faster-than-light travel." Kexathera's mandibles clicked in amusement. In her 3 centuries of service, she had overseen the conquest of 47 worlds. This one would be number 48. The Galactic Council had perfected the process long ago. Find a primitive world, demonstrate overwhelming superiority, accept their surrender, integrate them as a labor class, simple, efficient, profitable. "Standard protocol, then," she commanded. "Send a demonstration fleet, nothing too dramatic. A few orbital bombardments of uninhabited areas should suffice. These primitives always surrender once they see our weapons." What Admiral Kexathera didn't know was that Earth had been watching. Deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, General Sarah Chen stared at banks of monitors displaying data that would have seemed impossible just 6 months ago. The discovery of faster-than-light communication had changed everything. Humanity's first tentative signals into space had been answered not with friendly greetings, but with intercepted military communications from something called the Galactic Council. "Ma'am, we're picking up massive energy signatures moving toward the outer solar system," reported Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, his face pale in the blue glow of the displays. "Whatever's coming, it's big. Really big." Chen nodded grimly. For months, her team had been decoding alien transmissions, learning their languages, understanding their technology. What they discovered had chilled every world leader to the bone. The galaxy was ruled by a council of species that conquered primitive worlds for slave labor. Earth was next on their list. But humanity had one advantage the aliens didn't know about. They were creative. Dangerously, impossibly creative. "Status report on Project Prometheus?" Chen asked. "All systems green, General. The fabricators have been working around the clock. We've got surprises ready." Chen allowed herself a thin smile. Let the aliens come. They expected primitive chemical rockets and basic radio. They were about to get something very different. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, alarms began to sound. Sensor Officer Victar's eyes widened as impossible readings flooded his screens. "Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy spikes across the system. The primitives appear to be launching something." Kexathera frowned. "Launching what?" At best, these creatures might have nuclear weapons, but those were useless in space combat. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life, displaying feeds from their advanced scouts. What they saw made no sense. Thousands of sleek metallic objects were rising from the blue world, moving at impossible speeds. But more disturbing than their velocity was their design. These weren't the crude, bulky rockets they expected from primitives. These were elegant, purposeful, and moving in perfect formation. "Those can't be their ships," Kexathera muttered. "Run a deep scan. There must be another spacefaring race helping them." The scans came back negative. The ships were definitely of local origin, constructed from materials that existed on the third planet. But the technology powering them was completely unknown. "Admiral?" Victar's voice cracked with disbelief. "Those ships are accelerating at over 200 gravities. Nothing organic could survive those forces." That was when the first alien ship died. Captain Jennifer Walsh felt the slight vibration through her command couch as her fighter's railgun fired. The projectile, a simple tungsten rod accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck the alien scout ship dead center. The resulting explosion lit up space like a small star. "Fox 1 away, target destroyed," she reported calmly into her comm. Around her, 999 other pilots were doing the same thing. It was the largest coordinated strike in human history, and the aliens had no idea what hit them. The beauty of humanity's solution was its simplicity. They couldn't match alien shields or energy weapons, not yet. But they could build small, fast, unmanned fighters controlled by human pilots safe on Earth. Each fighter carried a single railgun and enough fuel for one high-speed attack run. They were designed to die, but not before taking an enemy ship with them. The aliens called them suicide drones. Humans called them equalizers. Admiral Kexthera watched in horror as her advance fleet was systematically dismantled. Ships that had conquered worlds were being destroyed by what appeared to be tiny metal gnats. Her tactical displays showed impossible things. The enemy craft moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Their weapons, while primitive by galactic standards, were used with devastating precision. "How are they controlling so many ships?" she demanded. "The coordination required would need a quantum processing network spanning the entire system." What she didn't understand was that humans had been training for this moment in video games for decades. Every fighter pilot was a veteran of thousands of simulated space battles. They knew how to work together, how to maximize damage with limited resources, how to think 3 moves ahead. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had superior tactics, and they were just getting started. The second wave of human craft appeared 12 hours later. These were different, larger, carrying crews of 5. They moved more slowly but hit much harder. The humans called them destroyers, and they lived up to their name. Lieutenant Maria Santos had never expected to be in space. She'd been a submarine commander in the Pacific Fleet when the call went out for volunteers. Now she sat in the command chair of Orca, one of 50 destroyers humanity had managed to build and launch. "Target acquired," reported her weapons officer. "Alien cruiser, bearing 27 Mark IV. Copy that. All weapons, fire at will." Orca didn't carry railguns. Instead, humanity had found an even simpler solution. Nuclear weapons, lots of them. Each destroyer carried 100 fusion warheads, each one guided by an AI that had learned targeting from the greatest military minds on Earth. The alien cruiser's shields flared as the first warheads detonated. Then the second wave hit. Then the third. By the time the 20th wave of nuclear fire reached the target, there was nothing left but glowing plasma. "Jesus," whispered the tactical officer. "Did we really just nuke an alien spaceship?" "We nuked the hell out of it," Santos confirmed, with grim satisfaction. "Next target." The humans were using brute force where the aliens expected finesse. It was working, but the real surprise was yet to come. Dr. Amanda Fisher had been working on quantum mechanics when the world changed. Now she stood in the command center of humanity's secret weapon, a device that shouldn't have been possible to build with Earth technology. "Quantum tunnel established," reported her chief engineer. "We have a stable wormhole." "Target?" "The alien command ship, right behind their main fleet." Fisher smiled. The aliens thought they understood physics. They'd been traveling between stars for millennia, using technology humanity could barely comprehend. But they'd missed something important. They'd never been desperate enough to try the impossible. Humanity had. The wormhole generator was based on theoretical physics that wouldn't be fully understood for another century. It should have required exotic matter that didn't exist and energy sources that were purely hypothetical. But humans had a knack for making impossible things work when their survival depended on it. "Send them a message," Fisher ordered. Admiral Kexthera was trying to make sense of her tactical display when reality tore open in front of her ship. A hole in space itself appeared, crackling with energy that made her sensors scream warnings. Through the impossible aperture, she could see the blue world they'd come to conquer. Then the humans started shooting. The wormhole was only large enough for small projectiles, but the humans made them count. Tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speeds poured through the portal, each one aimed with mathematical precision at critical ship systems. Engines died, shield generators exploded, communication arrays went dark, but more than the physical damage was the psychological impact. The aliens realized they were facing a species that could bend space itself to their will. How was that possible? How could primitives who'd barely left their own planet create technology that challenged the laws of physics? The answer, which they would only learn much later, was simple. Humans didn't respect the laws of physics. When survival was at stake, they broke them. As the Zephyrian fleet burned around her, Admiral Kexathara made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. She activated her ship's emergency beacon, sending a message to the Galactic Council that would change everything. "This is Admiral Kexathara of the 47th Conquest Fleet," she transmitted on all frequencies. "We are under attack by the natives of Sol 3. Request immediate reinforcement. These beings are not primitive. Repeat, they are not primitive. They possess technologies we do not understand. They fight with tactics we have never seen. And they are winning." The message streaked across space at faster-than-light speeds, reaching every major world in the Galactic Council. For the first time in 1,000 years, a conquest fleet was calling for help. On Earth, General Chen watched the alien retreat with mixed emotions. They'd won the first battle, but she knew this was just the beginning. Soon, the full might of the Galactic Council would come for them. "General," asked Lieutenant Colonel Martinez, "what do we do now?" Chen looked at the displays showing human ships pursuing the fleeing aliens, at the readouts from the quantum tunnel that defied everything science said was possible, at the reports coming in from factories around the world where impossible technologies were being mass-produced by sheer human determination. "Now we get ready for the real fight," she said quietly, "and we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." In the depths of space, the surviving aliens fled toward the galactic core, carrying news that would terrify civilizations across 1,000,000 worlds. The primitives of Earth weren't just fighting back. They were winning, and they were coming. The galaxy was about to learn what human really meant. The Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council had not been called to emergency session in over 3 centuries. Representatives from 237 species packed the massive amphitheater on Galactic Prime, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony that the universal translators struggled to process. High Chancellor Mordek, a being that resembled a crystalline tree with too many eyes, called for order with a harmonic tone that resonated through every living creature in the chamber. The noise gradually subsided. "We have received Admiral Kexathara's transmission," Mordek announced, their voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "A conquest fleet has been defeated by primitives. This is unprecedented." A ripple of disbelief swept through the assembly. The Vectani delegate, whose species resembled giant mantises, clicked their mandibles in scorn. Impossible! No species develops space combat capability without first achieving interstellar flight. These humans must have hidden allies. "Our deep scans confirm they are acting alone," replied Admiral Kexathara via hologram, her usually pristine uniform scorched and torn. "Whatever we're dealing with, it's unlike anything in our databases. They use technologies that shouldn't exist and tactics that violate every principle of civilized warfare." The hegemony representative, a blob of intelligent gas contained within a mechanical suit, spoke in electronic tones. "Define shouldn't exist, Admiral." Kexathara's mandibles twitched with remembered fear. They opened a wormhole, not a standard jump point or hyperspace corridor, an actual tear in space-time that allowed them to attack from their home system while we were light minutes away. Our best scientists say such technology requires a Type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale. These humans haven't even colonized their own moon. The assembly erupted in noise again, Several delegates were frantically accessing their personal databases, trying to find any record of a species developing beyond their apparent technological level. They found nothing. High Chancellor Mordek raised a crystalline appendage for silence. Admiral, you will provide a complete tactical analysis. The Council needs to understand exactly what we're facing. What followed was 18 hours of testimony that gradually turned the Galactic Council's certainty into concern, then fear, then outright panic. The humans hadn't just won a single battle. They'd fundamentally broken every rule of how primitive species were supposed to behave. Dr. Elena Vasquez had never expected to be humanity's ambassador to an alien civilization. She'd been a xenobiologist studying extremophile bacteria when the world changed. Now she stood in the communication center of the Luna base, preparing to make first contact with the galaxy. "Are you sure about this approach?" asked Director Park, nervously adjusting his tie. As head of the newly formed Department of Xenological Affairs, he was technically in charge, but everyone knew the real decisions were being made by people far above his clearance level. "It's our best shot," Elena replied, checking the translation matrix one final time. "The psychological profiles suggest that appearing weak will only encourage more attacks. We need to project strength while leaving room for negotiation." The quantum communicator, a device that had gone from theoretical impossibility to working prototype in 3 months of desperate engineering, hummed to life. Elena took a deep breath and activated the transmission. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, speaking on behalf of the United Earth government and the human species. We know you can hear this transmission. We know you've been watching our solar system, and we know you came here to conquer us." Across the galaxy, the message was received simultaneously on every major world. The quantum entanglement communicator bypassed the normal delays of faster-than-light travel, delivering humanity's words instantly to every corner of galactic civilization. "We are not interested in your galactic empire," Elena continued, her voice calm and measured. "We did not ask to be conquered, enslaved, or integrated into your society. All we wanted was to be left alone. But since you have forced this conflict upon us, we will respond accordingly." In the Grand Assembly, absolute silence reigned as the impossible transmission continued to broadcast on frequencies that required technology the humans shouldn't possess. "We are prepared to coexist peacefully with your various species. We are also prepared to defend ourselves against any further aggression. The choice is yours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the Galaxy Council in stunned silence. Then the arguments began. "Arrogant primitives!" snarled the Docron military attaché. "A single system threatens the entire galaxy? This is exactly why we maintain the conquest protocols. Upstart species must be taught their place before they become a threat." But the Selthari representative, a graceful being of flowing energy, disagreed. Did anyone else notice their transmission method? Instantaneous quantum communication across galactic distances suggests a fundamental understanding of universe-level physics. Perhaps we should consider their words more carefully. The debate raged for hours until High Chancellor Mordek called for a formal vote. The resolution was simple: authorize unlimited military force to subjugate the human species before they could develop further. The vote was 231 to 6. War had been declared. Commander Jake Morrison had been flying experimental aircraft for the Air Force when humanity's defense began. Now he piloted something that would have been pure science fiction 6 months ago. The Prometheus was the first human starship, a kilometer-long vessel that had been constructed in Earth orbit using fabrication techniques that broke every known law of manufacturing. "Jump coordinates locked," reported his navigator, Lieutenant Kim Park. "Target, Proxima Centauri system." "Engineering report," Morrison called. "Quantum drive is stable, sir. We're ready for humanity's first faster-than-light journey." Morrison felt the weight of history as he gave the order. Engage. Reality folded around the Prometheus as it slipped into a pocket dimension that human scientists called sideways space. The journey to humanity's nearest stellar neighbor, which should have taken over 4 years at light speed, was completed in 17 minutes. "Jump successful," reported the navigation officer. "We are now in the Proxima system. Launch the probes. I want to know everything about this system." What the probes found changed everything. Proxima Centauri had planets. One of them was inhabited, and the inhabitants were slaves. The Xanthari had been a spacefaring species once. Their homeworld orbited Proxima Centauri, and they'd achieved interstellar flight roughly 500 years ago. Then the Galactic Council found them. After a brief conquest, they'd been classified as a labor species and put to work mining rare elements from their system's asteroid belt. Ship's xenobiologist, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, studied the probe data with growing horror. "Jake, you need to see this. The aliens have been working these people to death. Population has dropped from 2 billion to just under 50 million in 5 centuries. Morrison studied the images of Xanthari mining ships, cramped and barely functional, worked by beings who looked like they hadn't seen adequate nutrition in generations. "How many Galactic Council ships in the system?" 3 cruisers and a dozen support vessels. Standard occupation force. Morrison made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. "Signal Earth. We're engaging." The Battle of Proxima was humanity's first offensive action against the Galactic Council, and it established patterns that would define the war. Human ships appeared without warning, struck with overwhelming force, and vanished before the enemy could respond. They used weapons the aliens didn't understand and tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The Prometheus materialized in the middle of the Galactic Council formation and immediately launched every weapon it carried. Fusion torpedoes, quantum disruptors, and kinetic kill vehicles tore through alien shields like they weren't there. In 12 minutes, the entire occupation force was destroyed. Then the humans did something that no galactic species had ever done. They started freeing slaves. "This is Commander Morrison of the United Earth ship Prometheus," he broadcast on all frequencies. "The Galactic Council occupation of this system is ended. You are now under the protection of the Human Defense Force. Any being who wishes freedom need only ask." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Xanthari ships abandoned their mining operations and fled toward the human vessel. Other species, imported from across the galaxy as slave labor, joined the exodus. Within hours, the Prometheus was surrounded by thousands of refugee craft. Dr. Walsh worked frantically to establish communication with the various species. What she learned sent shockwaves back to Earth. The galaxy was built on slavery. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds lived and died in bondage to the Galactic Council. "We can't take them all," Morrison said, studying the refugee fleet growing around his ship. "We don't have the resources." "Maybe we don't need to take them," Walsh replied. "Maybe we need to teach them to fight." That night, using quantum communications, Earth made a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. If the galaxy was ruled by slavers, then humanity would tear that rule down. The liberation of Proxima Centauri was just the beginning. Admiral Veskala commanded the largest fleet in Galactic Council history. 700 ships of various classes, representing 40 different species, all united in their determination to crush the human threat before it could spread. Analysis of their tactics. "Admiral?" she asked her chief of staff, a cybernetic intelligence that spoke in mathematical equations. "Probability matrices suggest they rely on surprise and superior firepower to offset their numerical disadvantage," the AI responded. "They avoid prolonged engagements and prefer hit-and-run tactics. Standard response protocols should be effective." What the Galactic Council didn't understand was that humans had been studying them for months. Every alien transmission had been recorded, analyzed, and decoded. Human intelligence knew the composition of Veskala's fleet, their routes of travel, their tactical preferences, and their weaknesses. They were walking into the most comprehensive ambush in military history. The humans had chosen their battleground carefully. The Ross 248 system was a red dwarf with nothing of value except its position along major shipping routes. It was the perfect place for a trap. As Admiral Veskala's fleet entered the system, they found what appeared to be a small human force waiting for them. 3 ships, including the Prometheus, hung motionless in space near the system's primary star. "They're not even trying to run," Veskala mused. "Perhaps they finally realized the futility of resistance." She ordered a standard attack formation. Her 700 ships would overwhelm the tiny human force through sheer numbers. It was a sound tactical decision based on millennia of galactic warfare experience. It was also exactly what the humans wanted her to do. Commander Morrison watched the alien fleet assume attack formation and smiled grimly. "Signal the fleet. Execute Protocol Stalingrad." Space around Ross 248 suddenly filled with human ships. They emerged from behind planets, from within the star's corona where their heat signatures were hidden, from quantum pockets that shouldn't have been able to exist. The 3 visible ships had been bait. The real human fleet numbered in the thousands. But more shocking than their numbers was their composition. Most of the ships weren't human at all. They were Zenthari vessels, upgraded with human weapons and driven by crews desperate for revenge against their former masters. Mixed among them were ships from dozens of other species, all flying human colors, all united by a single purpose. Admiral Veskala realized too late what she was facing. This wasn't just a human fleet. It was a coalition of every species the Galactic Council had oppressed. Armed with human technology and led by human tactical genius. The Battle of Ross 248 lasted 14 hours and ended galactic civilization as it had existed for over a millennium. When it was over, the largest fleet in Council history was scattered wreckage, and the rebellion had ships, weapons, and most importantly, credibility. As news of the victory spread across the galaxy, something unprecedented began to happen. Slave worlds started to revolt. The careful order that had maintained galactic peace for 1,000 years began to crack and crumble. In the aftermath of the battle, Commander Morrison found himself face to face with representatives from 50 different species, all looking to humanity for leadership in their fight for freedom. "We're not conquerors," he told them through the universal translator. "We're not trying to build an empire. We just want to be free, and we want the same for you." A Zenthari elder, her voice carrying the weight of 5 centuries of oppression, spoke for all of them. "Then teach us to fight like humans. Teach us to win." Morrison looked out at the assembled representatives, beings from across the galaxy united by their hatred of tyranny and their hope for freedom. Humanity had come to the stars looking for answers to the great questions of existence. Instead, they'd found a cause worth fighting for. "We'll teach you," he promised. "And together, we'll tear this whole system down." The Galactic War had begun in earnest, and for the first time in a millennium, the outcome was in doubt. The siege of Galactic Prime had lasted for 3 months. The homeworld of the Galactic Council, a massive artificial construct built around a white dwarf star, had never been threatened in its 2,000-year history. Now it was surrounded by the largest liberation fleet ever assembled. General Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the New Dawn, humanity's first dreadnought-class starship. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of over 10,000 ships, representing 400 different species, all united under the banner of the Free Galaxy Alliance. "Status report," she requested, her voice carrying the calm authority that had made her the natural choice to lead the final assault. "The orbital defense platforms are at 60% capacity," reported Admiral Tikera, the Zenthari fleet commander who had become Chen's closest ally. Our quantum disruptor bombardment has been more effective than projected. Casualty reports? Light. The humans' hit-and-run tactics continue to minimize our losses while maximizing theirs. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. 3 years of warfare had taught humanity that direct confrontation with superior numbers was suicide. Instead, they developed something the galaxy had never seen before, a total war philosophy that combined advanced technology with guerrilla tactics and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The transformation of galactic civilization had been swift and brutal. Within 6 months of the Ross 248 victory, over half the systems in the Outer Rim had declared independence. Slave revolts erupted across 1,000 worlds as species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly found themselves with human weapons and human advisors teaching them how to fight. The Galactic Council's response had been predictably savage. Entire worlds were sterilized as examples to others. Billions died in the Council's desperate attempt to maintain control, but for every atrocity they committed, 10 more worlds joined the rebellion. Humanity had become more than just another species fighting for freedom. They'd become a symbol, proof that the Council could be beaten. "General," interrupted Communications Officer Rodriguez, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. High Chancellor Mordek requests a parley." Chen considered this for a long moment. The Council had never requested negotiations before. They'd always demanded surrender or offered extermination. "Tell him I'll meet with him," she decided, "but on our terms." The meeting took place on a neutral station in the system's outer asteroid belt. Chen arrived with a small delegation that included representatives from every major species in the Alliance. High Chancellor Mordek came alone, his crystalline form dimmed with what might have been exhaustion. "You have won," he said without preamble, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of defeat. "The Council is prepared to discuss terms of surrender." Chen leaned back in her chair, studying the being who had ruled a galaxy for over a century. "I'm not interested in your surrender, Chancellor. I'm interested in justice." "Justice?" Mordek's many eyes focused on her with something like confusion. "You have defeated us. You may impose whatever terms you wish. Is that not justice enough?" "No," Chen replied firmly. "Justice would be every being in this galaxy having the right to determine their own fate. Justice would be an end to slavery, to forced conquest, to the idea that might makes right." The negotiations lasted for 18 hours. When they were finished, the galaxy had a new government, a constitution based on individual freedom, and a promise that no species would ever again face conquest simply because they were different. But the real work was just beginning. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the observation deck of the research station orbiting Earth, watching as construction crews put the finishing touches on humanity's greatest achievement. The Galactic University was a massive complex designed to bring together the greatest minds from every species in the galaxy. "It's beautiful," said her companion, Dr. Veltar, a hegemony scientist whose species had joined the rebellion early. "Hard to believe it was built by the same species that destroyed the conquest fleet." Elena smiled. "Maybe that's the point. Humans aren't just good at breaking things. We're pretty good at building them, too." The university was part of humanity's answer to victory. With the war over, the galaxy faced a new challenge: how to build something better than what had come before. The Free Galaxy Alliance had united hundreds of species in war, but maintaining peace among such diverse peoples would require something more than military cooperation. Education was humanity's solution. If beings from different worlds could learn to understand each other, to appreciate their differences rather than fear them, then maybe the cycle of conquest and oppression could finally be broken. "Have you seen the enrollment numbers?" Veltar asked, checking his portable display. "Over 50,000 applications for the first semester. Species that hadn't spoken to each other in millennia are now sending their children to learn together. Elena nodded, watching as a group of young humans worked alongside alien construction crews to install the university's central computer system. The machine itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, combining technologies from dozens of different species to create something none of them could have built alone. "That's not even the best part," she said. "The real breakthrough is what we're learning from each other." The end of the war had unleashed an explosion of technological and cultural exchange unlike anything in galactic history. Human creativity, freed from the constraints of defensive warfare, had begun combining with the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of ancient civilizations. The results were staggering. Diseases that had plagued species for millennia were being cured by combining human medical techniques with alien biochemistry. Faster-than-light travel, which had remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years, was being revolutionized by human engineers who refused to accept that impossible was a valid answer. Most importantly, the barriers between species were beginning to break down. For the first time in galactic history, beings were choosing their own paths regardless of what world they'd been born on. Commander Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, walked through the corridors of the Prometheus, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The old ship had become a symbol of human determination, and its crew had been scattered to a dozen different projects in the aftermath of victory. "Admiral," called his old navigation officer, now Captain Park, "you need to see the latest reports from the Integration Committee." Morrison accepted the datapad, scanning through statistics that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. Former slave worlds were achieving unprecedented prosperity. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Council for centuries were now open to all species. Scientific cooperation was advancing faster than anyone had dreamed possible. But most importantly, there hadn't been a major interstellar conflict in over a year. The galaxy was learning to live in peace. "Sir," Park continued, "there's something else. Long-range sensors have detected energy signatures from outside the galaxy. It looks like we might not be alone out here." Morrison looked up from the reports, a familiar gleam in his eyes. Aliens? That's the preliminary assessment. The signatures don't match any known technology. If they are ships, they're big. Really big. Morrison handed the pad back to his former navigation officer and walked to the observation deck. Outside, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, no longer seeming hostile or threatening. The galaxy that had once tried to conquer humanity was now humanity's home. But beyond the galactic rim, new mysteries waited, new challenges, new opportunities. "Set course for the unknown signals," he ordered. "Looks like humanity's work isn't finished yet." As the Prometheus turned toward the galactic edge, Morrison reflected on how much had changed since that first alien transmission had been detected over Earth. Humanity had come to the stars as primitives and discovered a galaxy built on oppression. They'd fought a war they couldn't win and won it anyway. They'd torn down an empire and built something better in its place. Now they faced the unknown once again, but they weren't facing it alone. Beside them flew ships from 100 different worlds, crewed by beings who had chosen to stand together not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Dr. Amanda Fisher, the physicist who had built humanity's first wormhole generator, now directed the galaxy's most advanced research facility. Her latest project made her earlier work look like a child's toy. "The quantum resonance array is online," she reported to the assembled council of scientists. "If there are other galaxies with intelligent life, we should be able to detect them." The implications were staggering. Humanity had assumed that intelligence was rare in the universe. Now they were discovering that their own galaxy was teeming with life, and there were billions of other galaxies beyond their reach, or maybe not beyond their reach. Preliminary scans show quantum signatures consistent with organized intelligence in at least 30 nearby galaxies, Fisher continued. Some of the signals are incredibly ancient. We may be dealing with civilizations millions of years older than our own. The assembled scientists, representing dozens of species, absorbed this information with varying degrees of excitement and concern. The galaxy had just achieved peace after millennia of war. Now they were discovering that they were part of something unimaginably larger. But if humanity had learned anything, it was that the universe's challenges were also its opportunities. Back on Earth, Elena stood in the same command center where humanity's defense had been coordinated years before. Now it served as the headquarters for the Galactic Communication Network, linking every inhabited world in an unprecedented web of cooperation and understanding. "Any regrets?" asked General Chen, joining her old colleague at the observation window. Elena considered the question seriously. The war had cost millions of lives. Entire civilizations had been disrupted. The comfortable order of galactic society had been shattered forever. "No," she said finally. "We gave the galaxy something it had never had before. Choice." Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in space, no longer an isolated world on the edge of nowhere. Transport ships from dozens of species arrived and departed regularly. The planet that had once hidden from the galaxy now served as its unofficial capital. But more than that, Earth had become a symbol. Proof that no oppression was permanent, no tyranny unbreakable, no challenge impossible if people were willing to stand together and fight for what was right. The galaxy had never seen humans coming. Now it could never imagine a future without them. As the two old friends watched ships from across the galaxy dock at Earth's orbital stations, a new signal appeared on the communication arrays. The quantum resonance array had detected something unprecedented. A coordinated transmission from multiple galaxies, directed specifically at their own. The message was simple, transmitted in mathematical concepts that any intelligent species could understand. "We have been watching. Well done. You are ready for the next step." Elena and Chen looked at each other, then burst out laughing. Even in achieving their greatest victory, humanity had managed to stumble into an entirely new adventure. The galaxy had never seen them coming. Apparently, neither had the universe. But that was fine. Humanity had always done their best work when nobody expected them to succeed. And they were just getting started.